Now, every year, Turks of the Year are a shorter list because unfortunately, there's a lot of jerks in politics and in the news. But let's get it started. John started with international nominee last time. I'll start with international nominee this time. The Hong Kong protesters.
Oh.
So love them, incredibly bold, courageous, standing up for democracy, for all human rights. It started with the young, but quickly spread. And so it was not just the young in this case, it was every age demographic there was, every gender there was. And so they stood up against one of the most powerful governments in the history of the world. That's the current Chinese government. They were threatened over and over again, and then of course abused by the police, but they did not submit. So it reminded me of the one guy in front of the tanks in Tiananmen Square, but now there were millions of them. And so they were a wonderful example to the world. So proud to have them on the list for Turk of the Year.
Yeah, we do on the Damage Report. We do Meanwhile In as our international news roundup, and we've returned to Hong Kong multiple times and checked in on horrific instances of violence against the protesters, the surveillance of them, people going missing, trying to find members of their family, and that these stories, that there's so many more that we were not covering, but throughout it all, that people were like, no, I'm not stopping, even though you could be the next person to face this sort of violence. To keep going is really impressive, and you want to believe that that in America we would do the same thing, but you can't be sure. And when you see that, it's just very inspiring, even though it's the result of these many tragedies.
I can be sure. We have a different culture. It wouldn't happen here.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't, and it's devastating. But I want to point out one other thing when it comes to the Hong Kong protesters, and I think that this is one other aspect that makes that movement so different from what we would ever see in the United States. Reporters asked some of the older protesters, some of whom are elderly, why are you risking your life to do this? What are you doing, And I remember this one woman said, I'm doing this for future generations, right? Because she cares about younger people. It's not all about herself.
Yeah.
It's not all about her generation. It's about creating a better world for younger people. And I think that that's such an incredibly selfless act, and I wish that we had a little more of that collective nature here in the United States, as opposed to this ridiculous individualism where everyone's just out for themselves.
Yep. Now, look, yes, unfortunately, we don't have as great a culture in protesting, but there's also another huge factor, which is Fox News, which is better than state television. Because in China and Hong Kong, particularly in China, obviously, if they do state television, everybody knows it's state television. Everybody knows they're lying, right? For Fox News, their audience literally doesn't understand that they're lying to them, right? So for example, is there a version of that here in America? Yeah, there was a protest in Ferguson. But did the press treat it that way? These heroic people demonstrating for human rights so that people that are unarmed don't get shot? No, Fox News said, oh no, those are the terrorists and the bad guys and the rioters and awful human beings. And then the rest of the press called it even. Can't tell. Right. Are they bravely standing up for human rights and being abused by the police? Or are they the bad guys? And Bill O'Reilly called Black Lives Matter a terrorist group. And then the rest of the media said, I don't know, I'll just call it even, right? So don't think there aren't brave people like that in this country. There are. It's just that our media does a better job than state media in suppressing them. And so, by the way, I'll give you one example. Cori Bush led a lot of those Ferguson protests. She's now running for office in Missouri. She's a Justice Democrat. You should look her up, justdemocrats.com. She's an amazing person. Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.